Welcome to Mindful Drawing. This week we'll explore an exercise that bridges a little bit of that gap, that isolation between our imagination and the media that we can represent it on. So the act of drawing is pulling something out of the mind, whether we're seeing it across the way and trying to interpret it and re-represent it as tones and values of graphite or ink, or seeing it inside and trying to tease that out into a little world of our own imagining. And it's a back and forth, a feedback cycle. Nothing exists in isolation, even an island in the sea or a rock just peeking above the surface of a stream or a lake while looking isolated, islanded on the surface of the water, has a whole connection to the geology, to the chain of elements below, and the reflections and interactions with the light and the just general surface of all things. So it all ties together as we see with our eyes, as we see with our imagination, as the hand moves, plays, dances, and teases through that field and connection, and slowly resolves into that world, the thing that emerges from your interaction with the paper. And through our exercise, a little bit of mindful listening, mindful noticing of our place, our presence, and our way of engaging, and see what you find in this exercise of bringing islands together. I'm going to use a pen, and it'll probably be a little bit light for many parts of it, but you can follow along, take a look at what you see on the screen, or just relax and let the hand move on a piece of paper, and whatever comes out of it will come out of it. Enjoy the ride. Go ahead and gather your supplies, establish your space, and let's draw together. Idea or topic would be little islands, little atolls, little things to meditate on, the collection of the individual or the space between things and what connects little isolated moments. But also my wife is escaping the snow in Bermuda, so she sent me a nice picture that started my thinking. But we'll probably build up with a pencil just so you have some layering, but pen will work just fine. Might just get more overlap in the lines. And we'll start out by kind of defining that little place or surface where something might touch a plane of transition, but really it's just a shape there. It can be kind of anything you want, but that shape defining in our imagination, perhaps the place where the water generally sits around something. With that shape, we get the front and the back all around the whole thing. And we could think of it as that transition zone between something that goes down, maybe a little hill, mountain, or rock coming up from below, a little change zone, maybe like a little erosion zone or little beaches or something, and then it goes up somehow, comes back to meet itself in some way, and then beyond that a little bit of definition, bringing in some edges, some lines, maybe giving it an imagination of a side. We're kind of tracing a few of its contours, bringing to mind what you think of with some kind of little outcropping of rock or mountain, and a simple collection of kind of shapes and layers, contours coming together at a plane. And we can explore a few of them in the same space by looking at that moment and finding how we want to transition that moment from under to over and give it definition through the time that the drawing develops. There can be a lot of play and overlap in these. Find our little world there. So we'll start by creating that surface, that flat plane of water that meets the air. Do that through the collection of shapes, a little archipelago of things. As we prepare for the exercise, you might bring to mind any times you've seen over a water. It would be soft, smooth, eroded rocks, sharp, jagged mountains popping out from a plane window, little pebbles in a stream, but any kind of condition of that water surface with something below and something above as a starting point for the mind. And let it unfold from there. If you can bring that up as an image, full, it is in front of the eyes. Take a couple of breaths with it just to quietly establish from it a little bit of starting place. It will transition and morph along the way, but breathing in deeply to hold it there. And relaxing with it in that moment of exhalation. A couple more times at your pace, just establishing yourself in space and the image and the mind as a guide. And as you take your next exhale, and pick up your tool, your instrument, pen or pencil. Take in the canvas, that empty space of the page, already the surface between somewhere and above. And find a spot on it to make some little shape, maybe lightly, the kind of perimeter-ish edge of a little island, transitioning from below to above. And in that, they might be a chain or a smattering. Or to think of a few around, playing along the ridge, the line or trajectory. The ridge can split and break long paths. Just making a few wiggly rock-like shapes. Very light here, sorry. Can't see them, but yours will be what they are. Keeping them kind of light so we can draw within them, tease out detail from the simple definition of place. Maybe there's a few small instances that sneak out in little directions that come from the shapes. Then the eye take in maybe a little bump here or there as a potential ridge that sneaks off another way. A few lone fragments extending out across the field. And as we work along, maybe there's a few more that crop up here and there, but we have a smattering of those suggestions of places where something meets from above and below. And we begin to layer into that the world above, taking them as a moment in time where all that plane meets, all the water meets. You want to add here and there a little definition as you see it. Feel free to look inward to one of the lines and consider that it has a perimeter of some kind. That perimeter may come up real close, hard rocky outcropping, or sneak in and leave a little open beach. But we can only see the perimeter kind of on one side, the closer side. So we might emphasize that a little bit, find a place where it sneaks around the curve, around to the other side of the shape. And begin to bring some emphasis to that, retracing, softening the edge, and giving it a little shading, just working along its contours to distinguish that zone of transition. Plane of the page to something peeking above it, and just a subtle offset to the shape. And then we can begin to imagine how it peaks or forms over the ground. Maybe the island rises up a little, flattens off, tapers back down into the plane of the page. Anything will work, just to curvy line takes the character from one edge up into another profile we see in the air. Maybe some of the background even sneaks back in. You see the ridge fading out to the other side. And with established as a little bit of an object, we can give it a face, a definition. Letting some of the peaks trickle down, make a little stream towards the base. Little veins or fur running through or around rocks or trees or whatever comes to mind in that first image. Similar, some of the base can leak its way up towards the top. Light featherings. Maybe a cliff here or there, a little plateau. Finding what you see, the idea of the little island atoll, the plane of a watery surface. Dragging in some fibers, letting the pen or pencil dance and play in that space between two edges. And here to fully represent the mountain, but to find its shape and a little bit of its definition as we watch that connection between what sits a little bit behind our mind and our eye and what unfolds on the paper. Things blending together, becoming their own new form. We've established one, and that character and idea can start to take shape throughout the field. Some in different directions, different game, imagining, but all the same setup. As you are ready and any time, you kind of work through each one, moving to the next. We'll take a little time on one to develop a little slower rhythm, a little noticing what we found in the first one. Any other shape nearby, finding it again, finding its edges, taking a moment to establish, to a listening inward to the breath and the body. Hearing the inhalation, feeling the exhalation, and on a cycle of that expansion and contraction, finding the place of inflection between foreground and background. And exhaling out that journey around the edge, that tracing of a little threshold between the plane of the surface, the world below or beyond, and the plane of the air, world above. Bringing a nice, even breathing to the filling in or distinguishing along that edge, light little feathery marks. And moving a bit free as you listen to the breath, in and out. And as you're ready, we'll start the journey above. Kind of inhalation to find the place of the transition. And exhalation to start again that journey up, over, through, along, around, and back to a place of transition, an apex or an asymptote to occur of moving from one side to another. And with that space between established, you're kind of listening to the breath. No need for strong inhale or exhale, but noticing when it comes in and when it goes out, to let the pen and pencil again play and dance between those two spaces to bring some of the coast up and some of the top down. Whatever scale starts to creep into your eyes. As you hear the kind of soft in and out, the soft crashing of the waves of the breath against that shore, you begin to establish. Listen to its soft, calming influence. And as you're ready, moving between islands, exploring each one, its new position, new shape, new size and orientation, following that same cycle. A reminder at the beginning of inhalation, of position, finding a place of transition, and then an exhalation as you explore its boundary condition to the edge, eventually fading out again at the end of the exhalation. Subsequent breath cycles move in and out, a rhythm from within. The soft edge establishes with just a few layers of contours or shade. And then something rises from a breath, inhaling to find a location. A reminder that the exhalation brings movement along the ridge. Noticing the new things that happen in each location. Hearing the sounds of the breath ebb and flow. We fill in a few little details to bring some definition to surface. Some may barely peek above, just little ringlets of sand, little polished surfaces, barely calling themselves out from that plane transition. Others perhaps more aggressive, cut by the water, shaping up. Play through these as you hear the waves. As we can get pulled in, caught in our imagination, release into that. Keep a mind, keep a light ear to those cycles of inhalation and exhalation. Notice the breath passing in, breath passing out, and from time to time, sit with it. Let the hand and the eye do their thing. The mind starts to see patterns. With a little bit of technique established, you can trace along them, bringing forth a little bit of something from the imagination. It's the many, there's always layers to this, so you can continue finding new instances of any little island moment. Some, again, just maybe just barely a blip peeking above the right time of day. Others more pronounced difference emerging from complexity. Seen, it's that simple, starting place a few shapes on the paper. We begin to see other layers to the drawing, other layers to the world they're building down there. Perhaps a slight tracing of the space between, no island alone, but connected to a larger chain, taking that same place of transition, that same asymptote along the curve, and instead of going up, going ever so lightly down, finding a ridge to trace along to the neighbor. Very light, very subtly. To give direction to the world. Something we might see if there wasn't a bright sun. Shining on the water. Maybe even a little land bridge, narrow pathways. We start to sneak in those to find ridges just like the surface world. And those ridges are peaks or valleys, extend a little bit lightly out into the space, slowly forming the whole of an object. We see the light veining little world underneath, slowly forming. Letting the pen or pencils dance, extend more out into the space of the page. Connect all of the little individual moments with a nice fabric of geology underneath. But not too detailed, the water blocking all the views. Just an imagining of what might continue on out there, giving the paper a little bit of definition. And in the last few minutes, filling in new islands, completing ones started but left untouched, and bringing a little more surface to that transition zone, place between water and air, by thinking of the waves, the directionality, the flow of the stream, the movement of the surface, the wind, currents pressing generally a direction, maybe just a light, a rough back and forth, a little bit of wiggles, and barely touching the paper, spanning the gulf between each moment, connecting in another way. Going in the foreground and the background. A loose fabric of reflections and foam. Is slowly reinforcing that blank page that once bridged all these pieces together. Now layers. Layers all touching and connected. Layers held. The pattern of forces. Pattern of time. Layers to hold us here in the world. Take a few minutes just to draw within to it. See what you find. As we approach the close of the exercise, taking a few moments as the hand may move, as the breath continues, just to notice and recognize the kind of power of movement and connection between all these parts of us, the hand, the eye, the mind, the imagination, and a few tools or media to help give them a way to speak. We're just moving the pencil back and forth, or creating a few squiggly lines that really are just squiggly lines, can slowly resolve into something over time. Practice, maybe more like the thing we imagine, but always something more than just what we put down on those lines or dashes or shapes or squiggles. A thing taking shape, building a connection between us inside and us outside. It takes a little bit of time, a little bit of practice, a little bit of breathing, and just relaxing to see where it goes. So as you're ready, go ahead and bring the hand to a rest for a little while. Take a moment to just take in the landscape, a few breaths to read over it, to imagine it new now that it exists there, not behind the eyes, but in front of them. And then let the eyes shift away, take in the room around you, notice where you are, and prepare to move on to the rest of the day. Reflecting on how the exercise comes to a close, that noticing of what can happen when we start with just a simple idea, some shapes that break the surface of a page. Those shapes to our eye can suddenly seem connected. They, in space, hover towards each other and bridge that gap of empty paper between them. And then from that and a little bit of imagination, something sitting at that surface transition from below to above, perhaps a mountain, perhaps a rock, perhaps a branch of a tree, peeking through the layer between below and the air, peeking through the layer between the water and the air, these two worlds hovering around each other, engaging through the forces of the natural world, wind, geology, movement, light. In which way did yours go? Did it follow the imagination, or did it change shape and scale? Sometimes just the subtle move of a line as we're trying to represent something, practicing seeing something in a certain way and recording that out onto the page, can go slightly astray, can become something else to our eye, to our pattern matching system, and the hand follows what's given. So take yours in, notice how it aligns or shifts from where you began, and then accept it and move through it to find a new world there. Have some fun with it and play. If you enjoyed the exercise, let me know in the comments what you found and give it a thumbs up below. Come back and subscribe every week for more episodes of Mindful Drawing. Until next time, draw well. Thank you.